Like many of you, I'm trying to figure out the absolute best possible build for the Mists of Avalon, alright? And so, I'm going to be running several tests today to see what it is that I want to spec up and max out. We're going to be testing burst damage, mobility, and overall DPS on a single target, because it is a solo type of adventure. You're only going to be fighting maybe 1 to 3 people at a time, and the people who are teaming up aren't really teaming up, they're just kind of picking on the weakest person. So if you can quickly whittle down someone's health, they will switch targets to them and not you. So let's get started. First up is the double-bladed staff. I'm also testing budgetability, okay? So this set is only, well, ignore the mount. This set is only 488,000, which sounds like a lot, but honestly, it's not that much. Like, the weapon is 34k, the armor's 50k, the helmet is 100k, boots 2k, cape, you gotta have the cape, you're gonna have to have a cape, and of course, a double-bladed staff needs its cape. Now, I've already tested the damage. I'm gonna pop it up on the screen for you. Here it is. Okay, the 5.1 double-bladed staff with no spec. I tested the auto-attack damage and DPS, the Q damage, which it doesn't say in the tooltip, but the Q1 ability here, what is it called? Concussive Blow. It increases damage each time you hit up to 3 times, and then it resets. Okay, I tested this at 100 spec for the weapon. Now, the full commit right here, this full commit number that you see, this is doing a full combo where I blow all my cooldowns and stick to a target along with a flat 4 demon cape, because that's the most affordable. And basically, I do 3 entire cycles of soaring swipe here while spamming, you know, the Q ability and all that kind of fun stuff, right? So this is just all the damage. You can see at 100 spec, you know, my full commit adds 400 total damage. At 120 spec, only 300 more. At 700 spec, that is 100 spec in each of the staff weapons. It only goes up to 3,600. So it's a very... oh man, it's not fun to invest in. So the next test is mobility, because mobility is extremely important in the Mists. Alright, and I tested the mobility on the double-bladed staff in a previous video to show that this is the most mobile possible build in the entire game, by the way. And what I did was I decided to follow the roads as long as I could for 2 cycles of Wanderlust, because I'm using all cooldown reduction stuff, to see how far I could travel, and let me show you the results. So this is how far I was able to get, whoops, I didn't mean to step there, but it's about right here, right on this darker brick. So, starting here, right outside town, I followed the roads, popped Wanderlust, popped every cooldown and cooldown reduction possible. I did drink a potion right about here to get my mana back, and I'm using a 6.1 to get 80% of the mana back, because it is pretty mana hungry, and then the second Wanderlust and all of its abilities carried me right about here. So you can see that I can travel pretty darned far. I wish I could just have a good, nice straight line with no obstacles to test this on, but I don't know what map of that would be. So I'm just using Bridgewatch because it's where I live. Now here's an interesting thing. I just tested the battle bracers with the same exact build, and I'm just about at the exact same spot as the double-bladed staff. I'm going to tell you right now that the battle bracers deal way more damage than the double-bladed staff. So I think that the double-bladed staff is obsolete. Now I will be testing battle bracer damage next, however, I don't think Royal Jacket and Spectre Hood really complement the weapon, so I'm going to go look up a better build. So this is the build that I found that seems to be working the best for solo or small, like, duo ganking, which is what the Mists are all about, right? It's the Battle Bracers with the Q2, W1, Fiend Cowl. You normally use it with Boop, however, you can switch to Purge if it's a purgeable build you're fighting. Invisibility for Assassin Jacket, lots of utility. Assassin Shoes with just Refreshing Sprint is what I see all of the top PvPers are using. Undead Cape to get away, Invisibility Potion also to get away, Beef Stew. And this build, without a mount, is over 400,000 silver, which is a pretty good commitment, but I think it's going to do really well in the Mist. I'm going to try out the damage now and share the results. After doing more research, we're using a flat 6 Battle Bracers instead, because all of the pros are using the Hard to Catch passive, which is not available in Tier 5 and below, and it's a little bit cheaper than the 5.2 Battle Bracers. Okay, here are the damage numbers at no spec. We have 26 auto attack damage or 67 DPS sustained. Q2 doing 2 hits because it's a slide and then an uppercut. Remember, this knocks players up as well, interrupts their spells. W1 is a movement ability, moves you forward, it's a triple kick. You can also reposition players. And then E is a movement ability, but also a burst. Now, I'm not recording the chip damage, so the way this E works is if you hit them barely within the AoE circle, you deal less damage, but it's so easy to aim and so fast that you're always going to be on target, okay? And then the full combo, as in that's the E, W, and Q. Not counting invis, because you can go invisible and really like supercharge your E, but that's for defensive reasons, not offensive ones. Anyway, full combo with no spec, 1157, okay? Not a lot. Now, if you look, I'm on a pretty budget set with a 5.1 armor, so I have 2.6k HP at maximum spec. You can expect most players to have about 2,500 or 2,800 HP, depending on what they are. And depending on how much their gear is, so keep that in mind with your full combo. Remember, you're hyper-mobile with this build. Then at 100 spec, you can see that the damage jumps up for the full combo to 1,400. Pretty nice. The E gets a very nice boost of damage, 100-something more. At 120 spec, this is, you know, having that nice diamond icon. It's not much of a jump. It's really not worth the 50 million combat fame credits. But if you were to put that on all the other weapons and make it 700 spec, you can see that the damage jumps up by another 120 or so for the full combo. The E, let's see, does about 50 more damage, so not too big there. But still not bad, because this is a fast and mobile combo. You can probably pull maybe 1 to 2 of these off a fight, and if you find an opponent with half HP, you can pretty much assassinate them with this build. So it's pretty good. I also want to mention that also maxing out your battle, or just war gloves in general, really helps for PvE players, because Spiked Gauntlets is one of the best for open world mob farming, which means it's one of the best for open world mists mob clearing. So it's just nice to have, I guess. Now I'm going to test the Bloodletter, this time using the mobility build, and then we're going to test its damage with the survivability build that we used earlier. So as you can see, the Bloodletter didn't even quite make it to the bridge. It is right about here, whenever the second Wanderlust ran out, using every cooldown possible. Even with the 6.1 mana potion, we still ran out of energy long before hitting the bridge, so it's not as mobile, but let's test its damage. Here's the results of the Bloodletter, and let me tell you, I am not impressed, and why, okay? So, the auto attack damage is slightly higher than the Battle Bracers, but the cooldowns, the mobility is not as good, the overall burst damage is more reliant on having to execute your targets. Battle Bracers all around are just completely better in pure damage, mobility, and defensiveness. But here's the stats. You can see here that at no spec, you're basically executing at 700 if you are buffed with 3 Q stacks and the W, at least 1 W stack. At 100 spec, you gain about 130-something damage, 120-something damage. You're not gaining a lot of damage with spec. And then I didn't opt for 120 spec because I just wasn't impressed by the weapon. So I went straight to 700 spec. You can see from no spec to 700 spec, you're doing maybe a little under 200 more execute damage. Is that really worth it? I mean, if you like the other daggers, absolutely. But I don't think in this regard that it's worth it at all. You're barely gaining any non-execute damage with anything, and your Q damage barely goes up. It's just gross. This is not a. I think this weapon is it's too old. It needs an update or something. Now, there's one last weapon I want to try in today's test video, and that is the bow. I know it's not the most mobile, but it is interesting in terms of just man mode DPS. So I'm going to test mobility, and I'll be right back. Well, it didn't do terribly bad. This is about how far we got. We didn't quite make the bridge. We didn't get as close as Bloodletter. But one more W would have put us about right here where we could at least see the bridge. It's not terrible for mobility, that's for sure, but it is a very high damage weapon. I'll show you. And now we have the bow build. Now this is a completely different take on the other two, because this one sacrifices all mobility and turns you into an indestructible, un-1v1able turret. So let me explain a little bit about this build. We got the Hellion Hood, a Cleric Robe, a Guardian Boot, and a Bridgewatch Cape. So here's the thing, right? If someone is melee and you're shooting at them and they close the gap, you just cast Smoke Bomb. You can continue to shoot while you're invisible, while they're silenced. They can't do anything to you, okay? There's no getting around that, right? They can't even reveal you with the other helmet. If they're doing big burst damage, you have the Cleric Robe to shield yourself and boost your damage for a bit. You also have Guardian Boots to turn yourself into a giant, which doubles your HP, which effectively means that you're taking half damage from all of their attacks for the duration, and it's a good duration. You also have a Gigantify Potion, super cheap, same thing, makes you big, and it doesn't quite give you double health unless you use the more expensive ones, but it's still another damage mitigation, and then the Bridgewatch Cape reduces their damage by 50% and slows them. If you shoot someone with a bow and this procs, they will panic. It summons a nice swirly tornado for a nice duration and a big AoE there, forcing them to either move out of the way of it, which might waste their time, reducing their damage further. It's just great all around. You also have a knockback with your Q, which deals great damage, and it's very low cooldown. It's super annoying to fight against, and it's very long range too, so you can keep pushing people back. Your W and your E are your massive, massive damage, and also the fact that bows are incredibly cheap allows you to use high tier bows. This tier 7 bow is only 80,000 silver. That's super cheap, and you're going to be mowing people down. I'm going to do some damage tests now. And finally, here is the bow results, okay, at no spec. The auto attack with the fourth passive gives you the most damage, by the way. And it also helps your W and E spells. You can see here that everything is pretty darn good. Even with no spec, you're still dealing a ton of damage as a very hard-to-kill turret. So people can run away from you, yes, but if they commit, they die. And they die very quickly, alright? At 100 spec, you can see that there's a major, major, major power spike over all the other weapons we've covered. You earn almost close to 100 additional DPS for 100 spec. It's insane. You're almost dealing 3,000 damage with just your full combo. Remember, you're not really killable in this state. You're going to win a trade with everyone else in the entire game with this build. So you either force them to run away, or they die. That's just how it is. At 700 spec, you can see that the power jumps a little bit, but it's not too big. It's still pushing your damage over 3,000, which is going to kill every single player except for plate tanks. But why would a plate tank be in the mists anyway, right? Also, here's some fun stuff. If you do the full combo with all damage boosting equipment, which is like fully stacked Druid Robe, you have Hellion Shoes with a 35% damage boost on the teleport, and of course the 15% damage boost on the Stalker Hood. It's barely under 4,000. It's not worth sacrificing all your defensives. But here's a cool thing too: the Face Scale Robe, which is the new robe in the Mists. The Frozen Fragments ability summons 5 little ice shards that shoot out whenever you deal damage. These things are so great with the bow because they launch very, very quickly. They also reduce your opponent's maximum and current health by 15%. You're dealing over 1,000 additional damage just with this armor, so it might be viable for bows. However, you do give up your defensive that the Cleric Robe gives you, which allows you to survive Cursed Staff users and High Burst Dagger users. So the bow is kind of unique in its PvE ability, which I just want to show off. You cast your W, you cast your E, and you mount up, and as soon as you dismount, you're ready for battle. So you can just start blasting, and you deal AoE damage. You can interrupt the enemies when they cast their stupid spells. By the time you stack up your E, you're already dealing tons of damage. You basically just kill everything super, super quickly because you're basically an auto turret. I still have 2 stacks left of enchanted arrows. I can recast it, mount back up, ride to the next pack. Here's an enchanted mob pack. So just park right here, start blasting. I'm going to go ahead and move up just a little bit, maybe reposition a tiny, tiny bit. Cast my spells, cast my Druid Robe, or I'm sorry, Cleric Robe. And you can see it's not the best PvE item in the game, but it's pretty good. I can just smoke bomb and in combat if I want, and there we go, they reset. But I could also stand and fight with these guys too, because I do have the Giant Boots, which I can use. I'm going to interrupt both of those spells. Giant Boots this. They're going to deal very little to no damage. And normally in PvE you would want to use a Cabbage Soup, because it is, well, it's the best for regenerating HP. You can see here. I will have to run from this. These are enchanted mobs, by the way, but it's still decently bursty. It's not as good as Spiked Gauntlets. It's not as good as Battle Bracers for PvE. Definitely not as good as crossbows or even bolt casters. Like, if I'm a bolt caster user and I see this pack leader, I can push E and kill her immediately. I don't have to do anything. It's a one-button instant win against PvE mobs. So based on the tests, what weapon would be really good for mists? I'm going to say the Battle Bracer build. So maxing out the war glove tree would be absolutely good. You wouldn't be disappointed. They're great in corrupted dungeons, PvE, PvP. They're great for transporting apparently too. So you don't really lose with the battle bracers. You just don't lose. It's good all around. You won't be disappointed. You won't regret spending your points. I think that the double-bladed staff was the worst one of today's showing, and the bow is niche. The bow is an all-in man-fight build, but it's still really powerful and worth mentioning. That's the video, guys. I'm SwolBenji. Thanks for watching. As always, be a bro and stay swole. If you liked the video, leave a like. It really helps out. Make sure you're subscribed because videos every single day, sometimes 2 videos a day. I also read every single comment. I may not reply to every comment, but I do read them all. And also, with that said, too, if this video helped you out, please consider donating. Click the thanks button down below to leave a one-time donation, or you can become a channel member. Click the join button. It's $5 a month. It's like subscribing on Twitch, but it's YouTube, and you get access to private, more personal videos that I think are too good for the public. There are some really, really good money-making videos on there and build guides that are just, I don't want released to the public because they're too good. Also, if you want, you can play games with me. I only have like 11 people in my Discord that are actively playing Albion Online, so the more the merrier. Click the link in the description, join that Discord. If you want to browse the members-only videos, click the link in the pinned comment. With that said, on screen right now is a video that Google thinks you should absolutely watch. It is handpicked just for you, the best possible video based on your interests. Google never lies. Google knows you in and out. Just trust the system, all right? And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's video. Mwah.